What's going on, everyone? This is Kevin here, coming at you with my hands-on and first impressions video of the Samsung Galaxy A14 5G. So without further ado, let's get started. Now, the Galaxy A14 5G is one of the latest affordable 5G devices from Samsung, and this phone is being offered both factory unlocked and at a variety of different carriers. Now, I will be linking to the phone in the video description so you can learn more about it. But I definitely recommend taking a look at your favorite carrier as well, because the carriers do tend to offer some really generous discounts and promotions on devices like this one and other ones as well. So certainly something worth keeping in mind. Now, before I get too far into things here with the phone, let's see what all comes included here in the box. So here's the box, and you can see right there, Galaxy A14 5G. There's a picture of the phone, and as the name of the phone does imply, this device is the successor to the Galaxy A13 5G, which was launched about a year ago. So to open up the box, you just slide off the top right here. Then from there, we have this packet. Now in the packet, we'll open this up and see what we have. But essentially, we have a quick start guide, and we also have a double-sided USB-C cable for charging and data transfer. There's also a SIM card removal tool included here in the box as well. But unfortunately, there is no USB wall adapter. Now with the Samsung Galaxy A14 5G, we have a very large 6.6-inch display. Now this display does feature PLS LCD technology, and it does feature a 90 Hz refresh rate. So pretty smooth here when navigating around the phone, and that's certainly an upgrade from the 60 Hz refresh rate that you typically find with lower end smartphones. Now things get even better from there. With this phone, we do have a 1080p display, so things do look very crisp and clear here. And despite this being an LCD display, the viewing angles are also great as well. So that's really awesome, and I'm also very impressed with the colors that we're getting here too. Overall, just a very bright and vibrant display. Now the PPI of this display is 400. We're getting a 20:9 aspect ratio, it's a more narrow but taller form factor, and we're getting an 80.2% screen to body ratio. So pretty small bezels all throughout. However, we do have a water drop notch up top here, and then there is a little bit of a thicker bottom bezel. Now with that 20:9 aspect ratio for the display, that is very well optimized for how people tend to use their smartphones nowadays, because with this taller display here, technically you can fit more of a single social media feed in a frame. So with that in mind, you really wouldn't have to scroll quite as much compared to a phone that might be a little bit shorter. And then with that very large 6.6-inch display, we're getting a really big canvas here to view video content on. So this phone is definitely a very great device for content consumption. Now the front-facing camera on this phone is 13 megapixels, and stay tuned for my full video review of this device to see a variety of different photo and video samples from all the various cameras on the phone. Now internally here, with the Galaxy A14 5G, we're getting 64 gigabytes of storage along with microSD card expansion. Now overall, 64 gigs is a pretty generous amount, especially for a lower end phone. I will say though, if this phone had 32 gigs instead, I think that it might be a good device to skip. So 64 gigs kind of is the minimum at this point, but at the same time, that's certainly a good starting point for a lower end device. And then having microSD card expansion at least gives you that flexibility to offload photos and videos, for example, to free up some of the internal room on the phone. Now with the Samsung Galaxy A14 5G, there is no wireless charging, which is a bit unfortunate, but also something that I don't expect to find with a lower end phone. Now this device does feature a side-mounted fingerprint sensor on the power button, so let's give that a try right now. It's very fast and accurate and responsive. Let's try that one more time. So that does work really well. And in addition to that, we're also getting Face Unlock with the Galaxy A14 5G. Now with this device, we are getting a quad camera setup on the back of the phone. So there's a 50 megapixel main camera, a 2 megapixel depth sensing camera to assist with portrait mode, and a 2 megapixel macro camera for close-up images. And this device also supports portrait mode for both the rear and front cameras. Another thing worth considering too is that with this phone, video recording does max out at 1080p for both the front and rear cameras, but unfortunately, there's no 4K video recording. Now here's how things look on the camera app on the device. You can easily take a photo just like that. It works very smoothly there. To get to the macro camera, you're gonna go to the More tab here at the bottom and then go over to macro. And then with that, you can get very close up and have things be in really good detail. Then exiting out of there, we can go over to portrait to get those nice blurred out backgrounds. There's even a slider here to adjust the amount of blur. So if you want less blur, you can do that. And if you want more blur, you can also make that adjustment. Then from there, we can flip around to the front-facing camera and we can take portrait selfies. And so far, things look really clear with this front camera, which is really impressive. We can also switch over to a group selfie option, so it crops things out slightly, and if we want to, we can also take standard selfies too. So certainly a lot of flexibility when it comes to all the various cameras here with the Samsung Galaxy A14 5G. Now internally here with the device, we're getting 4 gigabytes of RAM paired up with the Samsung Exynos 1330 processor. Now that's a pretty generous amount of RAM for a lower end phone, and then with that processor, definitely don't expect to get the best performance out there, but for a phone in this segment, I do feel like it does perform pretty well. Overall, running through the operating system is very smooth, and then I also ran a benchmark test using Geekbench 5, and I'll show you the scores in that test right now. But essentially, I got a single core score of 527 and a multi-core score of 1662. So what I recommend doing is running this test on your current phone and then compare these scores to your scores to see how the Galaxy A14 5G compares to your current device. Because one thing's for sure, you definitely wouldn't want to purchase this phone and end up finding out later that it's actually slower than your current device. So certainly something worth considering there. Another benefit too with the processor that we're getting here with the phone, and as the name of the phone does imply, we are getting 5G connectivity. So at this point in 2023, you can certainly get by with just 4G LTE. However, I know for me personally, I wouldn't go through all the effort of buying a brand new phone and setting it up and everything, and not being able to take advantage of my carrier's latest and greatest network. And as we get further and further into the future, 5G is going to be the standard. Now with this device, we're getting a very large 5,000 milliamp hour internal battery, so definitely expect to get a full day, if not 2, of usage out of the phone. And in addition to that, this phone does support up to 15 watt fast charging. So I am glad that it does support that. One thing to make sure though is that if you get this device, you will want to use a 15 watt charger. So since there is no wall adapter included in the box, you will have to either use one you already have or go out and buy one. But keep in mind that the charger that you have might not be 15 watts. So you can look on the bottom of the charger to figure that out. You figure out the watts by multiplying the volts by the amps. So take a look at that and see. But if you're using a 5 watt charger, for example, with this phone, it will recharge the device, but you'll notice that it's going to take a long time because the battery is very big here. Now, also with this phone, the software is a nice thing to see because it's actually getting Android 13 out of the box. That's very highly appreciated because Samsung already gives their A series phones a pretty generous amount of updates. I believe 3 years with A series phones. So the fact that we're already getting Android 13 out of the box means that you'll be getting very many Android updates into the future. Unfortunately, that cannot be said for some other companies, such as Motorola. I just covered the Moto G Play 2023, and that phone features Android 12 out of the box. So it's always nice to see the newest and latest version of Android included with a brand new device. Now, in addition to that, this phone does feature Samsung's One UI 5, so essentially it takes Android and kind of gives it Samsung's own twist to it. And if you've used any Samsung phone over the last several years, then the software experience here will definitely be very familiar to you. Another awesome thing too about this device, and this is, by the way, the official US unlocked model of it, so this could be different based on what region you're in, but this device does feature NFC. So I'm really glad to see that. NFC is the technology that's used for tap and pay. So if you want to use Samsung Pay or Google Pay with this phone, then you can definitely do that. And that's a feature that I tend to use quite a bit with any device that does support it. But now that I've gone over a variety of different things about the Samsung Galaxy A14 5G, let's take a closer look at the actual hardware of the phone. Now, there's certainly some good and bad things when it comes to the hardware. I will say, when I first took the phone out of the box, I kind of did feel like it felt a little bit cheap. It also feels like a pretty thick and large phone, so that's not necessarily a bad thing, especially if you do end up putting the phone in the case. You probably won't really even notice the form factor a whole lot, but I do feel like it doesn't really look that impressive when it comes to the overall appearance of it. But then again, if you're looking to get a phone in the more budget segment, you really can't ask for too much. I think most people that end up getting this phone are just looking for a good, reliable smartphone from a reputable brand. And then another thing worth considering too is that this phone is made completely of plastic, besides the display, which is glass. So yet another reason to get a case for this phone, because plastic phones definitely tend to scratch up quite a bit as time goes on, just because the material here is not quite as durable compared to metal or glass. But taking a look at the left side of the phone, we have the slot for the micro SD card and SIM card. Then on the right side, we have volume up, volume down, and then also the power button, which doubles as the fingerprint sensor. Then up top here, we have the noise canceling microphone. And then on the bottom of the device, we have the 3.5mm headphone jack. Glad to see that's still there. We have the microphone, USB-C port for charging and data transfer, and the speaker. And then on the back of the phone, certainly pretty plain here, we have kind of this nice texture on the back. It is a matte finish, which I do appreciate. I wouldn't say it really seems like that great of quality again. Like, it's not like it's really low end, but at the same time, it doesn't really make the phone feel any more expensive than it is. So certainly when holding this phone and looking at it, it does feel like a low end smartphone, but I wouldn't make that a deal breaker. But again, just don't expect too much. But on the back of the device, we have the camera module, flash, and Samsung logo. But overall, I'm very excited about the Samsung Galaxy A14 5G. It seems like compared to the predecessor, the A13 5G, the biggest benefits with this phone is that we're getting better performance, and then also we are getting better cameras. So those are certainly two very important aspects of a smartphone that I'm glad Samsung has improved upon. Now in a future video, I will be comparing this phone to the A13 5G, so certainly stay tuned for that content. But with all that said, I hope you enjoyed my hands-on and first impressions video of the Samsung Galaxy A14 5G, and with all that said, I will see you in the next video. Take care and have a great rest of your day.